Ever since the launch of Super Mario Bros. In 1985, game companies have been constantly trying to outdo one another when it comes to establishing their own platformer series. As gamers, we've been exposed to Italian plumbers, blast processed hedgehogs, and everything in between as developers seek out the formula for a perfect platformer. Although they all technically belong to the same genre, platformers can differ widely when it comes to how they feel, simply based on how the games are designed. Mario is known for power-ups, Sonic's got that whole speed thing down, and Donkey Kong, well, hey, he rolls. There's only one feature that all of these games have in common, and that would be something that's existed just about as long as video games themselves: game overs. For a while, developers felt that punishing players for their inability to overcome challenges was the best way to extend a game's length and focus a player's attention. But what if a platformer decided to defy this given standard of gaming and instead crafted an experience that constantly drove the player forward, giving them the incentive to never give up, to never have to backtrack, to never stop having fun? Well, straight from the mind of two indie geniuses, I give you the modern classic of Super Meat Boy. Strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen, this episode will not be vegan friendly. So, Super Meat Boy is one of the greatest success stories in indie gaming and is well deserving of all its praises. It's a high-speed platformer complete with wall jumping, deadly traps, and a killer soundtrack. The game is loosely tied together with the humorous tale of Meat Boy pursuing the evil Dr. Fetus, and its levels are generally pretty short, collected in batches of 20 to make up the game's worlds. Pretty basic for a platformer at a first glance. Well, here's the thing. Super Meat Boy manages to be one of the most absurdly difficult games of all time without ever feeling unfair. You see, fairness is always a tricky balance in games, especially ones that have you consistently hopping over pits of lava and other such nonsense. A difficult game is separated from a broken one by one simple factor: control. A player has to always feel like they are in perfect command of their avatar and should be able to develop an understanding of their own limitations and abilities in the game over time. This is one of the main reasons that Super Mario Bros. Has become so popular. With the Mario series, Nintendo managed to strike gold with their platforming engine on the very first try. They realized that the best level design in the world couldn't save them if Mario controlled badly. Want an example of how important this type of game feel is? Try asking a Genesis-era fan what their opinion is on Sonic the Hedgehog 4. The best thing about this game design truth, however, is something that Team Meat realized early on. There is no single perfect way for a platformer to handle. Could you imagine trying to play DuckTales with Castlevania's method of jumping, or vice versa? Being able to face off against Dracula while bouncing all over the place would completely destroy the experience. The two types of character movement both work flawlessly in their own games, but would be absolutely terrible in others. The perfect platformer would be a game that has a well-controlled character in a world designed around that character's limitations. So, Team Meat took the ricocheting, high-flying fun of their protagonist and built the entire game around it. It didn't matter how nefarious the level design got, you always had complete control of Meat Boy, and you could generally always see how to succeed in a level from the moment you first entered it. The only problem you had to overcome was actually accomplishing that feat. So, as I said, this game is tough, really tough. And the fact of the matter is, anyone who plays Super Meat Boy is going to die literally hundreds of times in the game before they complete it. Team Meat needed to come up with a system more elegant than game overs. Many games in recent years have begun to abandon this concept of limited lives already, and simply relied on checkpoints, leaving any games that retained game overs to feel, well, dated. In most games, dying only took up a few seconds of your time before throwing you back to somewhere close to where you failed. You got a few beeps and boops, a sad little jingle, and then you were sent right back into the fray. When you finally lost all of your lives, that was when you had a longer moment of respite, whether it be on a menu or a countdown screen. However, this mechanic didn't really have the most positive impact on players. Sure, it gave you a moment to catch your breath, to get your act together before trying again, but it could also be a depressing and almost off-putting experience. Please try again? Why should I if I'm performing so badly? The game seemed to be asking you if you were finally ready to give up, which admittedly does provide some incentive in a masochistic way, but isn't really everyone's cup of tea. Super Meat Boy, however, already has more than enough masochism to spare. The game is daunting in both its difficulty and the sheer amount of content that it packs in. There's secret characters to unlock, warp zones to uncover, and an even more difficult dark world to overcome after you've mastered the original levels, adding even more craziness to the game. It would be easy for a player to simply bow out and stop playing the game because how are they ever going to beat it all? Well, the genius of Super Meat Boy is that it never really gives you a chance to feel down about your odds of success. You have unlimited lives, and every time you die, you immediately spawn right back at the beginning of the level. The music doesn't stop, and the paths you've taken before are still marked with Meat Boy's red goo, a dark reminder of which paths to the goal you've attempted before. You're constantly encouraged to keep going, even after dozens and dozens of deaths on a single level. You may be wondering, what's so special about this? I already mentioned that game overs have become less common over the years, but Meat Boy did something different. They realized that they could utilize this brief period of rest that game overs provided and place it somewhere else to reinforce victory instead of failure. Because when you finally do beat a level in Super Meat Boy, you're treated to a visual masterpiece. All of your previous attempts of the level are played at once, giving you an immense emotional payoff as you finally get some respite from the game's constant action. You watch as one by one, your Meat Boys fail while others pass them by, until finally, only one remains, your perfect run of the level, the payoff to all of your attempts. The game rewards you for your perseverance instead of mocking you for your failures. It's a feeling that gives you a sense of accomplishment and makes you want to continue to overcome the game's challenges, so that you can experience that rush once more. There are many words you can use to ultimately describe Super Meat Boy: insane, hard, overwhelming even. But the one word you can never use is impossible. No challenge you face is insurmountable. No bandage is placed somewhere it can't be found. Eventually, with enough effort and commitment, you can beat this game. The genius that Team Meat managed to pull off was in keeping you wanting to push forward, to find out what challenges lay just around the bend. For a game this crazy to keep you this committed, well, that's really freaking clever.